Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And Pakistan and India are at war, and this thing is escalating. There are a lot of elements to this thing. This is breaking news. It's interesting, the Russian element in this as well. But before we get too serious,
we will talk about the Met Gala because I keep insisting that we should.
Yeah, and that's your story because
Yes.
I talked about it earlier on my solo show, and I'm kind of burned out of the Met Gala.
Well, for me, it's more what they were trying to do with the whole theming and the whole reason why they were doing it. It was obviously a way to, counteract Trump and all the horrible people that voted for him and show how virtuous they are in pandering to the whole BLM parade that went.
Well, and thank you to everybody that has been tuning into my show
Yes.
in the morning, even though it's only a few people. I know Rafa has come over from our Spanish channel and gave me some support. So it's been a big help, but it's kind of working in the fact that the Spanish channel is getting a lot more viewers, but this English channel, because we're broadcasting from Mexico City, YouTube won't promote us outside of Mexico, and it's primarily Spanish speakers here.
Well, and we do have plans to kind of counteract that, but it's going to take a while because it's a lot working with 3 shows and then editing and clips and then eventually doing the longer segments, edited videos in Spanish as well, more documentary style. So,
well, thank you for everybody that is liking and subscribing. Every like and subscription on this channel really helps. We're trying to build this one. This is our secondary channel. Our primary channel is the larger, but like I said, YouTube just won't promote this channel.
No.
We're being censored.
Location censored.
Let's get into the Met Gala then.
Okay, that you begrudgingly will get into. So the Met Gala happened yesterday, as it always happens on the first Monday in May, and it became a show of pandering to essentially just BLM on a blue carpet this time.
This is the opening segment. Give it some oomph. I know you just got done with your hour show, but this is a sad story to begin with, so you're going to have to sell it to the people.
Why is it sad?
It's ridiculous.
It might be boring to a lot of people, but so the whole theme of the Met Gala was called Superfine what? Superfine Tailoring Black Style. So it was all based upon...
Is that your black accent?
No. Before anybody comes out and screams at me, no, it's not. It's my This Is Ridiculous accent. So it's based upon the Costume Institute's exhibition that was also apparently to do with all of this, as they always do. They always have a theme, and the Costume Institute tries to go with that theme. And apparently it's will be arranged by 12 characteristics of Black dandyism. But in my opinion, most of it was just a statement that the leftist elite were trying to do to show how virtuous and pandering they are to minorities now that the horrible, terrible man is in charge of the U.S.
Okay, well, let's go through it kind of quick.
And Rihanna's pregnant, apparently.
Let's go through it kind of quickly because we have covered it 3 times now.
Yes, we have.
So.
Oh, no, it's not showing me all of them.
And this happened earlier in my stream as well.
It only showed me Rihanna.
Okay, well, let's talk about her, and that's kind of enough then.
Well, if you really want to go talk about the war, we can do that.
No. Let's talk about Rihanna here. And I said this earlier. Her hat is like a wannabe of what's Trump's wife's name?
Melania.
Melania Trump had at Trump's inauguration.
That everybody made fun of.
Melania's hat looked a lot better than this. This looks ridiculous.
Yes, and the whole theme was supposed to be like tailoring and how... Oh, maybe if I say no, it'll change. Oh, no. It won't let me. Okay. Well, essentially, the Met Gala, just another exercise in leftist elitists trying to show how virtuous and good they are because they include those that are oppressed.
Okay, well, let's go into what's going on with India right now. And I'll get into the nitty gritty here because a lot of people aren't going to know what's going on in India and Pakistan long term. If you are interested in more like in-depth geopolitics, what's going on day to day in a lot of these hot zones, the Duran is an absolutely great show. It's called the Duran. It's 2 gentlemen that have a show together, but then they also have individual shows. I watch all 3, and it gives me a good idea of what's going on in these not so talked about regions from Western media. Okay, so India and Pakistan. India has launched missiles into Pakistan now. Why did they do that? Because Pakistan had allowed some terrorist organizations to go into India and do a few attacks, and then the people retreated back into Pakistan. Pakistan wouldn't let the Indian authorities in. Pakistan also funds a lot of these nefarious organizations. So the fact that the government's involved with promoting these people, India really doesn't like. So India, in retaliation, said they would cut off the shared river to Pakistan. Now, what you have to realize here is that Pakistan and India are both nuclear powers. A lot of people do not know Pakistan has nuclear arms, and Pakistan has already threatened to use nukes. And the reason they've threatened to use nukes so quickly was because they're running out of weapons. They have no weapons. Why don't they have no weapons? Because the U.S. had pressured Pakistan at the beginning of the Ukrainian war to give all their weapons to Ukraine, which they did. Now they're left defenseless. The behind-the-scenes data is showing they may have 4 to 5 days of actual missile defense. India is a major superpower and could absolutely run over Pakistan right now because they have given all their weaponry to Ukraine. This being the case, Pakistan has asked Lavrov, he's one of the major negotiators within Russia, to come in and to negotiate a truce between Pakistan and India because they are scared right now. India has a major advantage over them, and their only way to defend themselves may actually be a nuke. So this could escalate into something very big. The interesting thing about this is Pakistan is the one that donated all the weapons to Ukraine. Now they're going and crying to Russia, asking them to negotiate a truce to this thing. And the reason they're asking Russia to negotiate the truce is because both countries were on good terms with Russia before, and India is on extremely good terms with Russia right now because Modi and Putin are really good friends. As far as where the U.S. stands in this, the U.S. usually backs Pakistan because they finance terrorist organizations through Pakistan to cause kind of havoc in the region. But now that Trump's in power, he's also pretty good friends with Modi. So it's going to be very interesting. And then we got one final big major player, and that's China. A lot of China's manufacturing right now is emptying out into India. So if a war started in India, which wasn't connected to China, a lot of that manufacturing might not go to India. It's a not so good of a financial situation to move your manufacturing to a country where there's war currently happening. Okay, yes. Do you have anything? I just kind of wanted to explain the broad spectrum and all the major countries involved in this. This thing, I think both countries kind of want to de-escalate it, but if India does decide to go forward, Russia's not going to stop them, and I don't believe the United States will stop them at this point either. The issue is Pakistan is a very small country, but they have nuclear arms. So this could become a really odd situation, and if Pakistan does launch a nuke, this kind of gives the go-ahead for other countries when they're in conflicts to potentially do the same. Right now, it's a big taboo to launch a nuke in war.
And I mean, as I've said multiple times, Guy is the geopolitics guy. I'm more of the culture, entertainment, pop culture, and ideology one. So, I mean, he knows a lot more about all this than I do. But I'll quickly read just for news sake. India launches airstrikes on Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The Indian government says it has launched missile strikes on 9 sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. 3 locations have been attacked. Pakistan's military says 8 people have lost their lives. Residents in, I don't know how to say, Muzaffarabad in Pakistan-administered Kashmir told the BBC how they were jolted awake by huge explosions. Relations between India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed states, have declined sharply following a deadly militant attack on tourists in Pahalgam last month.
And Pakistan has also claimed that they shot down 5 planes and launched a missile attack back at India. None of those reports are confirmed. And the rumor is Pakistan's in an extremely weakened situation right now. So they're going to try to overplay their hand, and they're going to put a lot of false reports out in the media. At least that would be my guess. I'm almost expecting India to go in, because if India does ever want to end Pakistan, now is the opportunity. Like I said, they give almost all their weapons to Ukraine, which is really backfiring on them now. Okay. Yes. We can move on, or unless you had another article or something.
Sure. No, not as of now. Probably tomorrow there'll be a bit more, but I think you gave a pretty good rundown on what's going on.
Okay, and we
who
got
the players are.
We're really heavy into geopolitics at the beginning, and then we'll move more into some of the stories I had in the morning that are a lot less heavy.
Yes. So next one is Germany's Merz becomes chancellor after surviving historic vote failure.
Wait, what? What? That's not right.
That's from 12 hours ago.
After historic failure. So this is new news.
I guess.
Okay, let's read
from
it.
12 hours ago.
Because I was actually going to report he got voted down for the first time in German history.
I think it might have been avoided.
They did a second one. No. He was voted down. It was a historic story.
Okay.
That's why I put it as the second story. There was a rumor that we're going to take a second vote tonight, because he had made a coalition, but 6 people within that coalition voted outside of it, and it was utter humiliation to him. And then there was a rumor that obviously there's going to be some backroom deals and payments made, so he would get his chancellorship, and obviously he did it. But let's read it.
So, Conservative leader Friedrich Merz has won a parliament vote to become Germany's next chancellor at the second attempt. Merz had initially fallen 6 votes short of the absolute majority he needed on Tuesday morning, a significant blow to his prestige and an unprecedented failure in post-war German history, as it was a secret ballot in the 660-seat Bundestag. There was no indication who had refused to back him, whether MPs from his center-left coalition partner or his own conservatives. After hours of uncertainty in the Bundestag, the parties and the president of the Bundestag agreed to hold the second vote, which Merz then won with 325 votes, a majority of 9. His coalition with the Social Democrats should have won seats in parliament from the start, with 328 MPs in total, but it is thought 18 of them dissented during the first vote. No chancellor candidate has lost the Bundestag vote in the 76 years since democracy was restored in Germany in 1949, and there was a prevailing mood of confusion in parliament in the hours after the vote.
Yeah, and I was going to say something else. The AfD, which they're now trying to put as a criminal organization and start spying on them, which is the major political opposition, is now the most popular party in Germany. The only reason they don't have control is, like a lot of other EU countries, they're creating these coalitions where they're putting all the losing parties together to have the majority of the votes.
Like Canada did.
Much like Canada is currently
doing. It's a globalist play.
Much like Canada is currently doing, and they did before the election. Yeah, so...
Okay.
This is the globalist play now.
Yes. Speaking of globalists, the EU to propose end 2027 halt to all Russian gas imports.
Yeah, and the story here is a little different. The initial headline was the EU goes to shut down LNG from Russia, and I paid attention to the headline because Europe's been saying how they cut off Russian oil. They cut off Russian oil right from the beginning of the war, how they cut off Russian oil. They never cut off Russian oil. They still have pipelines connected to Russia. They're even saying Russia's refusing them to sell oil. Problem is, I watched Putin's interviews, and he said, no, we're never going to cut off oil to the EU. As long as they're willing to buy it, we're willing to give it to them. And that's why Ukraine or the US or the UK may have blown up that German pipeline. We don't know who it is because they haven't come out and said. They're currently blaming it on Ukraine because the Russian story didn't quite stick. But this is a huge play, and it really shows Putin's geopolitical knowledge. What Europe wants more than anything right now is for Putin to stop selling the EU oil, because then the economy can crash, the people will suffer, they can blame everything on Russia, get the people amped up for a war, and then go to war against Russia. Right now, the people in Europe are unwilling to fight against Russia. They don't want to be in that war. They don't see Russia as the big bad guy. But if the energy shut off and people start starving and freezing, it's going to be very easy for the EU to sell the people that war.
Yes.
Sorry.
And that's what they want.
And that's what they've wanted for a long time now.
And it would also allow them to start instituting a lot of the plans they've had for a while now. Digital ID, CBDC, central bank digital currencies, which is currencies that are essentially managed and given to the people by governments.
Yeah, the EU desperately needs Russia to step out of line so they can blame their downfall on them. Because if the EU and countries within the EU start to collapse financially, and they are on a razor's edge right now, they're going to have nobody to blame. And if they have nobody to blame, the people are going to rebel against the EU itself.
More than they're already trying, but being stopped of doing.
Okay, we can go into the next story if you want.
Sure. So Trump says U.S. to stop attacking Houthis in Yemen as group has capitulated. Yeah, so
Trump did a major attack on the Houthis and the Houthi ports. The photos and videos coming out of the region were absolutely spectacular. So much so that the Houthis decided to capitulate and negotiate. Negotiations basically went like this. The Houthi says, okay, we're going to stop bombing U.S. ships. Trump said, as long as you do that, we won't bomb you again. So that's where it currently stands. Now, I'm really wondering, how is it going to go for EU and Israeli ships passing through that region of the world? I don't know. Right now, what I've been able to read is they have agreed to stop attacking U.S. ships. I don't know if there was a larger negotiation taken on there.
And this all happened when Mark Carney met with President Donald Trump today, which was an S show. But quickly, we do have a comment from Walker. Thank you, Walker. Hello. He says, it's basically unlikely that the EU will give up buying cheap gas from the nearest gas station. Exactly. Why would you go try to find and travel a long time when you have one right there?
Well, it's very interesting because what the United States and Europe referred to for Russia as for the past decade was a glorified gas station. So they thought this war was going to be very easy to kind of repel Russia, and they had nothing and they could collapse their economy with sanctions. What they're finding out, it's a much more robust economy, and he invested in guns, goats, and gold, not the world economy. He had really insulated Russia and prepared them for hard times, and hard times really never came. Mm-hmm. So are we going to go into the Carney story? And Walker, thanks for tuning in.
Yes.
And Rafa as well. Thanks for watching my show this morning.
Yes.
It was nice to actually have somebody watch it live.
And Rafa says incredible that Europe has become so weak. And it was basically, they allowed themselves to get trapped within the organization that they now call the EU, which essentially just weakened every country that is in it.
Yeah, and there's one reason the EU will not give up their glory dreams of going to war with Russia, because that kind of solves all their problems. And if they can't escalate that into something more, all the responsibility is going to fall on the EU's heads, the UN's heads, the globalist heads, and the EU may really start to fracture, and countries may want to separate, especially this separation movement that is happening in Alberta right now. If this province in Canada votes to separate, this sends a message to a lot of the rest of the world. The EU countries are going to say, wait, can we actually vote to leave the EU?
Yeah.
Other countries may say, can we vote to leave our country? Mm-hmm. People are going to say, it's going to really change the paradigm of the people can maybe be in control of the government rather than the elites dictating to the people. So this is one big reason I'm really hoping for this separation movement in Alberta, because it does change the paradigm of who's in control of the government, and it may give the people control over the government rather than the government controlling the people.
Yes. Also, Walker says, a few days ago, I learned that the Yemenis attacked a U.S. aircraft carrier and destroyed an F-18.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. So.
And then Rafa also says, nice show, guy. We'll try to stay tuned in. But also, as you mentioned in Spanish, you do have to study or do your certification. So good luck with that as well. Rafa,
Oh, what's he studying?
he didn't say, but he just said he might not be as present because he has a certification, which is probably more important than watching our show.
Oh, for sure.
But yes, good luck. And thank you for always tuning in. And also Walker says, sorry, my broken English. That's okay. So next one, and we kind of touched upon it quickly, but Trump and Carney face off in Oval Office, leaves gaping differences on tariffs and the 51st state.
Well, yeah, and this is just getting more and more ridiculous because I reported on this a little bit this morning, but this was breaking news, and I was literally just loading things from X so I could show clips and talk about them as I was almost watching them live. Now I've had time to kind of ingest this stuff and watch longer clips and watch the whole interview, and Carney was made to look like a fool. He had one 30-second clip that all the Canadian propaganda media is clipping where he said Canada is not for sale, it will never be for sale, and then they cut the clip.
Right
directly after that, Donald Trump says never say never, and then he goes into a whole tirade that we don't want Canadian oil, we don't want Canadian steel, we don't want Canadian aluminum, we don't want anything Canada got because we already have natural resources and we want to start developing American independence.
Using them.
So yeah, it's Carney is in a situation, and I did watch the whole interview, and Trump was really talking not down to him directly, but he was sitting right there and he was talking down to Canada, and Mark Carney kept saying,
couldn't defend it.
He kept trying to tap him on the shoulder and raise his hand to talk. And he said how he was going to stand up to Trump. He did. He looked like Trump's little lapdog.
Yes.
A little chihuahua.
And also, speaking of the differences between, for example, Mark Carney, who has never held any political position before this one, even though he was in charge of the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England. He is also in charge of a whole firm called Brookfield. Yeah. Brookfield, which he moved to
Brookfield
New York.
Asset Management. It's the Canada's version of BlackRock.
Yes. So he's managed a lot of things, but he's never been a politician, as opposed to the conservative he ran against, which was Pierre Poilievre, who essentially does this in front of Parliament every single day, being the leader of the opposition. And he would have, even though I would have loved for him to go completely against Trump, he would have at least been seen more as a figure and as a political opponent or friend to Trump than this pandering, meandering little man.
And after watching this, it's very apparent Carney has very little cards to play. The economy in Canada is going to begin to crumble. It was already crumbling before this election. They voted him in expecting him to get a deal here. If he doesn't, Alberta may separate and Canada's ready to fall on its face. He does have one other play, and I hope Claudia Sheinbaum is smart enough not to get drawn into his mess, because he's going to try to draw the EU and especially Mexico into teaming up against America. And yeah, they may be in a similar situation where there's a tariff, but Canada has time and time again drawn Mexico into a lot of different negotiation situations and then completely turn its back on Mexico in order to go for its own negotiations. The last time this happened was the North American Free Trade Agreement, I believe.
The USMCA.
The U.S. went to Mexico, said, we want to make a free trade agreement. Mexico said, with Mexico. Mexico said, well, no, we need Canada involved in this. And so they stood up for Canada, said, we need Canada in this. They all started negotiating, and then Canada said, why don't we cut Mexico out?
They tried to circumvent Mexico.
Which was ridiculous.
Yes.
They got all three countries involved in it, but that was absolutely crazy. And there was another situation that was similar where Canada again set Mexico up for the fall and then turn its back and try to negotiate with just the U.S. With U.S.-Canada relations. And all the politicians in Canada, all the MPs, one after another, recently said, we're not Mexico. We're not a third world country. We should not be being tariffed or treated like Mexico is being treated, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Mexico has so much more to offer the U.S. in terms of natural resources, manufacturing, everything Mexico has to offer that Canada, essentially, what can they give? Lumber, aluminum, and that's about it.
Canada's a bunch of elite globalists that, if they had the chance, would try to take over the United States, but they're so weak they can't. They're also a matured economy, and they're only connected to the U.S., so it's really hard to integrate with the rest of the world through trade and pipelines. Mm-hmm. Mexico is an emerging economy. It's going from a poor country to a middle class and eventually a rich country. Hopefully. And whoever's in on the ground floor of investment here, which I think Trump realizes this, you're seeing Trump align with emerging economies around the world because he knows there's profit to be made. When a country's already matured, it has to keep growing like a pyramid scheme. Problem is there's nowhere left to grow at a certain point, so it starts to collapse.
And I mean, you said if Claudia Sheinbaum is smart enough, that's asking for a lot, and for her to realize what's actually going on, because her whole voter base wants her to go against the racist Trump. But we'll see what she does. She's also, I mean, Mexico has been, in my opinion, a little bit too involved and getting too involved with China, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, but I think Claudia Sheinbaum isn't pulling all the strings. There's also organized bad people that are pulling a lot of her strings. So it's not all pure politics when Sheinbaum negotiates. So it's very interesting how things kind of work out with Mexico sometimes. And as far as Sheinbaum's economics, once in a while she's been pulling good moves, I will admit. Although I don't like the party because of the ideological left leaning with trans and kids and a bunch of other stuff. And
also the blaming every other thing on the past and everything is the fault of other people, when now those same people are working for them.
But she has made good nationalistic policies. She had built the ports, which now if the Panama Canal does get shut down, they have the 2 ports on each coast connected by a rail line. So it's kind of like a land bridge for other countries, and they can really leverage that with
if they work, because
they can really leverage that with negotiations with the U.S. and things. And also the GMO corn, I didn't mind.
Yes, that was good. And I have admitted that I liked that they did that, protecting local corn and avoiding using GMO corn, which eventually destroys every single other crop that isn't GMO. And Mexico has so many varieties of corn that should be protected and should be taken care of.
Yeah, and I would say that on our other channel, we do hit Sheinbaum kind of hard sometimes, and we do that because we play it down the line. We like Trump, but we'll go hard at Trump. Yes. We don't like Sheinbaum, we're going to go hard at her, but when she does something good, I will say it. And a lot of the comments on those videos where we hate Sheinbaum, obviously they're not watching the lives, because when she does do something good, I will point it out.
Yeah, and I've pointed it out too. And as I've said in Spanish as well, like, I have no political party in Mexico, in Canada, anywhere essentially. I'm politically homeless almost, essentially, and I don't work for any party, and there's a lot of those accusations that come from people that are used to it working that way in Mexico.
There's no conservative party in Mexico.
No, there's no real conservative party.
There's no conservative party here,
and much less alt-right or like the ultraderecha, the super right. That doesn't exist.
The right parties are left-leaning.
And yeah. So they've all essentially fallen down the same line. And it's funny, I was just quickly going to say on this article on the side here, it's interesting that now that even AP News is apparently reporting that Alberta's premier would allow a citizen-led referendum on separation from Canada, when that topic, Alberta separatism and Albertan separatists, was basically not able to, it was a third rail in Canada, nobody could report on it, and now I see more and more news coming out about it. So it's interesting that now media is willing to report on it, traditional media.
Yeah, there is
because you could go to jail for talking about this in Canada a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. They were debanking people and throwing people in jail for talking about Diagolon. And now I'm sure this little stream is going to be censored, but since we only got 3 viewers, I don't think it's really going to matter. What I was going to say is there is I follow Canadian media, strong independent media and mainstream media, and they are coming after Danielle Smith. They are demonizing her. They are demonizing Albertans. They are trying to elevate First Nations and Alberta, saying they have the right to the land, blah, blah, blah. Like the way they're coming after them, I almost feel like might backfire on them and really push Albertans to say, we don't want this anymore.
Yeah, stop treating us this way.
One more thing, though. Carney doesn't have many cards to play with Trump. So if he can't come to a good deal with them and the Canadian economy starts to collapse, he's going to be forced into negotiations with Alberta, and he's going to have to give a lot of special privileges to Alberta.
Yeah.
And if the other provinces see that it worked, they're going to start going at the federal government too. And I think Carney knows that, and that's why he's trying to stay strong and say no green energy, carbon tax forever, blah blah blah.
No normal vehicles past 2035.
Okay. Let's
Also, Rafa says AW. I'm
one
not
second.
here.
We have had the cameras on for quite a while because we're doing multiple shows today. So
it disappeared. I was just gonna read Rafa's comment. Let me find a way to. There we go. I was gonna read Rafa's comment. So AWS Solutions Architect. That's the certification. Don't know what that means.
Maybe overheating.
Oh.
No, that's fine.
Sorry. Do you know what an AWS Solutions Architect is? Advanced Web Solutions Architect?
I'm not too sure.
Might have to do with internet stuff.
A lot more than I know.
Yes. Because AWS, Amazon Web Services, is that it? You don't have to tell me. You can stay private if you want. I'm just trying to figure out what it means. Good.
That sounds like it would be Amazon Web Services, I bet.
Amazon Web Services Solutions Architect. So fixing it.
Yeah.
Good luck either way. Clearly smarter than I am with computers, and obviously way smarter than guys.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you always keep saying how you're not good at technology.
Oh, and we got a picture of Mexico City behind you tonight.
Yes. We're trying to find things for our background and what looks good for the Spanish show, for the English show. Walker says, I wonder what the reason was for Mexico to do that at the time. Could it have been some kind of payment from Canada to Mexican politicians to advocate for them in that deal? Maybe.
Or maybe Canada was talking to Mexico behind the scenes, say, add us in. As soon as they got added in, they try to backdoor Mexico and go to the United States. Like, Canadian politicians are a bunch of globalist shysters, and the only one they're looking out for is themselves, not the Canadian people.
Yes.
So...
And
at least with Trump, I mean, you might get some weird corrupt dealings or something like that, but at least half his policies, he's trying to put the American people first, and that's more than a lot of politicians do.
Yes.
So,
speaking of Trump, yes. So Trump considering 100% tariffs on movies not made in the U.S., and we've been talking about this a lot, especially because we did work in the film industry in Canada, and I mean, this would affect them. So in part of the things we've been saying is like it's good that we left when we did because we'd be out of a job now.
Yeah, this is a big emerging story, and this was my primary headline for my morning show. I think I covered 4 or 5 articles back to back with different perspectives on what's kind of going on here, and this is really just emerging. It broke last night, and now finally people are just giving comments today. So I think we're going to be covering this a lot in the coming days because this is going to be all over the media, and this is going to really reshape the mainstream media landscape. And that's what you see Trump really doing right now. He's put 3 envoys into Hollywood that are really... have been shunned by Hollywood in the past, but know Hollywood inside and out and have been successful despite Hollywood trying to shun them. That's Mel Gibson, Sylvester Stallone, and Jon Voight. They're part of a movement called Make Hollywood Great Again. And it looks like Trump's going to run a protectionist tariff for Hollywood studios and then give major funding from the government on top of that in the form of tax breaks. At least that's what's kind of emerging so far. It's going to be interesting how these tariffs work on streaming services, because how can you tariff streaming? I don't know. Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be mainly for things that come into the cinema.
Yep. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my contact. And something that, I mean, not a lot of the details have come out, so it is kind of like shooting darts in the dark, because a lot of people don't even know what it means, what's going to be tariffed, what isn't, what does he mean even. I mean, he has been in talks with Jon Voight with his plan to save Hollywood by mid-sizing federal tax credits, increasing write-offs, and harsh tariffs on overseas incentives. Jon Voight, if you don't know, is Angelina Jolie's father. They've had a rocky relationship. I think now they're fine. But
she's extremely left. He's extremely right. They're both involved in Hollywood. They're both heavily involved with the Republican and Democratic Party. Angelina Jolie with the Democratic Party, Jon Voight with the Republican Party. This could really be a powerhouse of a family if they can mend their differences and come together right now. So, yeah.
So it just says off the top about what Jon Voight is saying is the Midnight Cowboy star seeks a 10 to 20% federal tax credit that would be stackable on what states like California, which takes a drubbing in Voight's document, Georgia and New York already provide. On the flip side, there's a hammer that will come down if a U.S.-based production could have been produced in the U.S., but the producer elects to produce in a foreign country and receives a production tax incentive thereof, which happens a lot in Canada. That's why they film in Vancouver. A tariff will be placed on that production equal to 120% of the value of the foreign incentive received. The proposal given to Trump explains. And then there's a lot of other things that he wants to happen, essentially.
So that didn't sound as bad as I thought it was.
What do you mean?
They're going to put a 100% tariff on
120.
120% tariff on whatever the incentive received by the other country was. Mm-hmm. So that there might actually be a go around there. So for instance, in Canada, they'll give these film companies a 30% discount tax credit for filming there, but then they get another 30% discount because the dollar is so weak. Mm-hmm. So it looks like he may not tax the actual dollar difference. Of that 30%, just the other 30%. So it still may be cheaper to film a lot of these things in other countries.
So speaking on streamers, in the proposal, he pitches a significant ownership shift between streamers like Netflix and producers. To that, a return to the shuttered financial interest and syndication rule is suggested with the hope to overturn what Voight calls draconian licensing terms. In subjective terms, similar to measures used in the UK and Canada, Voight and team want eligible productions to meet a minimum threshold American cultural test, which happens in Canada. Anything produced or shown in Canada, there has to be a certain percentage of things that are about Canada or made in Canada. In case you're wondering who is in the crosshairs here, the proposal says it applies to content produced for theatrical distribution, U.S. broadcast networks, U.S. cable channels, streaming services including Netflix, Amazon, Disney, Apple, Peacock, Paramount Plus, and Hulu. They didn't put Max in there. And digital platforms, YouTube TV, X, Facebook, aka everyone.
Yeah, and the government has always had their fingers in Hollywood, even in recent times with all this woke propaganda and crap. But they're really getting hit from both sides. The Democratic Party and China are really promoting wokeness in Hollywood. That's why it was so infested. But previous to this age, there was previous ages where communism was huge within Hollywood circles. The Red Scare. Israel was highly involved in Hollywood for a long time, had a lot of influence there. But the CIA was highly involved. They have a dark history within Hollywood where they're writing scripts, putting them into studios and getting them made. Basically, almost outright propaganda for the American government, which, okay, but yeah, the history of Hollywood is pretty interesting when it comes to Hollywood and politics.
Yes. And Rafa says, Amazon Web Services. Yay, I got it right. Well, good luck, and hopefully you do great.
Yeah, and Amazon, they do make a lot of woke crap, but they are
they ruined Lord of the Rings.
But they are one of the few people that do invest in some like both sides of content, which I do like. Yeah. So I don't mind watching
Paramount
Amazon.
Plus too. I mean, they have the Yellowstone stuff. And I mean, HBO Max is now going full on with wokeness with their new Harry Potter thing that I talked about in Spanish. I keep moving to Guy's camera because I have to touch my eye. My contact keeps moving, and I know people get weird when you touch your eyes. So trying to avoid that for you all. Then did you want to speak about the Teamsters or no?
No, we can.
Essentially, a lot of unions in the U.S. Most of film production in the U.S. and in Canada and a lot of other places is based on unions. I know in Mexico it works a little bit different, but there's a lot of film unions, SAG-AFTRA. What's the other one? The annoying people? IATSE, that's another one. Those are the annoying people. Those are all the...
Yeah, but the Teamsters did give a statement.
And then Teamsters are more the technical people. And they actually...
And the drivers and the security.
Driver security, technical stuff, some lighting, some other stuff. And they gave a statement essentially saying Trump is trying to get our jobs back and we're fully in support of him. None of the other unions that I've seen have said really anything.
But this is
which is interesting.
This is a huge move because the upper echelon of the Teamsters, basically the heads of the union, have been completely separated from their union members politically. They've sided with the Democrats over and over with this woke garbage. We used to get the emails and stuff talking about come to woke day, come to Indigenous Day, come to DEI day, come to all these different crazy days. And it's like you're pressing this on a bunch of like truckers and stuff that don't want to go to this.
And people that actually
don't want to go to this
people
crap.
that actually work.
But the fact that they came out with a political statement saying they're completely backing Trump like this is a shift from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party and realigning their union with their members because the elites within that union were losing credibility amongst the members.
And also before even the elections, the whole Teamsters union, which is not only film, but there's a lot of truckers, there's a lot of things that Teamsters do and different union types they have. But they came out and said that for the first time in a long time, they weren't going to be backing a candidate.
Yeah.
And that was also a big statement. So
that was in the last election, and that was kind of the first
because they didn't want to back
signal.
Kamala.
Now they're going to what the Democrats would say the dark side.
Yeah. Also, if you haven't seen Kamala's dress for the Met Gala, she looked fat.
Oh, the fact that she was there is crazy.
She ate so much, like a lot of what's it called, like depression eating.
She was talking. She gave a speech somewhere the other day.
Also, Pamela Anderson, why is she not wearing makeup? And
she doesn't wear makeup anymore.
I know, but did you see her?
People are complimenting her.
She needs to wear a bra. And why? Somebody please explain to me why girls think it looks good. And I know it started by them saying, "Oh, I don't want to look good for men, so this is how I'm gonna cut my hair." But the whole bangs that go up to here, like you have like little tiny short bangs. Now Pamela Anderson is doing that. I mean, I understand, taking pride in getting older and aging gracefully. But that doesn't look graceful. That looks ridiculous. Sorry. I just remembered.
Okay. We can move on here.
Yes. Because there's a lot about this story still. I think we have the Newsom stuff.
Oh, actually, I didn't go into this. So why don't you read a little bit of this article? So I kind of grabbed this article, but I didn't have a chance to read it. So why don't you read a little bit of it?
Sure. So California Governor Gavin Newsom proposes $7.5 billion federal film incentive after Trump floats tariffs. Initially, he came out with a completely different tone, and now he's kind of shifting it. So he said, just the day after Donald Trump revealed his plan to impose 100% tariffs on any and all films produced in foreign lands, California Governor Gavin Newsom said Monday he wants to collaborate with the president to create a $7.5 billion federal tax incentive to help the film industry. Many in the industry have pushed for years for a federal film subsidy to counter runaway production, as film jobs have been lured by incentives in Canada, the United Kingdom, and elsewhere in the U.S.
Stop for a second. This is complete bullshit because, of course, Gavin Newsom wants $7.5 billion from the federal government to finance Hollywood and studios within California. If they do invest billions of dollars like this, which I have a feeling that the federal government is, nobody's saying it has to go to California. They should spread these studios out in different regions of the United States so it gives a huge economic boost to different regions, and it can get rid of woke ideology at the same time that's really rooted within Los Angeles and Hollywood.
And it would break up essentially what is now the film industry cartel.
This monopoly,
and the monopoly that they have, and they've had since essentially it started, since MGM started doing stuff. So.
Yeah, I would love to see a huge multi-billion-dollar investment from the federal government to build the new studios, but place them strategically in different locations around the United States.
Because right now it's basically, as the article says, Georgia, New York, and Hollywood, and California.
Yeah, and it's primarily California.
Yes.
And California already gives them tax breaks, spends money there. So of course, I just hate Newsom. Okay.
Well, luckily his podcast is failing because nobody's interested in what he has to say.
I liked when he was starting.
But then he got so much hate that he stopped doing that and started just bringing in woke leftists and Democrats that nobody cares about and who don't know how to talk.
Because he really brought he brought the premier intellectuals from MAGA in. This was Charlie Kirk and what's the gentleman I always watch with the gray hair?
Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon, and Steve Bannon really was the gentleman that made Trump. If you don't know the story of Bannon and Trump, Bannon was the one looking for a populist candidate he could try to put up. He went to Sarah Palin, who he decided wouldn't work. Then he went to, I think it was Walter Cronkite. I know it was a really old journalist that
Must have been at death's door.
That everybody in America
already
would know, so that he figured he would have a good chance to run. And then somebody set up a meeting between him and Trump was a Democrat, so he just didn't think it was going to happen, and he suggested it, and Trump agreed. And then Bannon gave him all of his talking points. Trump wasn't some magical populist. It all came from Bannon. Bannon gave him the strategy to take the Oval Office. Mm-hmm. But Trump had been like rumored since the 80s that people wanted to put him up for president. The Democrats wanted to put him up first.
Because he used to be a Democrat. So Rafa quickly says, I hate Amazon, but I want a raise. Don't we all? And Walker says the CCP should be proud of what it did to Hollywood and largely created the leftists in the West, whom the Chinese paradoxically call Baizuo, which means white left.
Yeah, man. I mean, Amazon working for their web services has to be better than working in their warehouse, because I watched the documentary about people working in the Amazon warehouse. They don't even let those people take a piss.
Sometimes. They've gotten a bit better.
It is crazy.
And they've done a lot of union busting, speaking of unions. But yes, China has been heavily involved in investing, not just in Hollywood, but universities, everywhere essentially around the U.S. because, as we've mentioned before, after a study they did, they realized that the U.S., one of the things that kept them growing and being the superpower that it was religion and the unity amongst the people. And they decided, oh, well, how are we going to be a superpower? We're going to break all that down. Let's bring in wokeness and let's inject all of these ideologies that we know won't work for us because we're communists and we tell people how to think. But let's let them think that the division created is amongst them and not by somebody else.
Maybe let's talk about that for a minute. This was one of the most largest in-depth studies ever done, and they studied every single aspect of America, from their economics to each individual industry, to the steel industry, to the education, you name it. They studied it, and they studied it in depth for 20 years. And at the end of all of that, they said what made America powerful? It was their religion and their Christianity. And then they went about breaking that up, or at least that's what it looks like to me. Because there is an effort to break up Christianity, not just in America, but in Canada. And they are trying
in the West.
They're trying a lot of their tactics in Canada first, and then bringing it to America and Australia. These church burnings in Canada are crazy. Over 200 now.
But all this has been happening for a long time now, since late 70s, early 80s, essentially, is when they started infiltrating. Walker says 7.5 billion sounds better than the eternal promise that China would open its doors to its markets of billions of Chinese, which didn't happen. And if it did happen a few times, China wasn't a fan. Exactly.
Yeah. And now the rumors and the statistics are slowly starting to trickle out. And we've talked about this. A lot of people don't think China actually has the 1.4 billion people they have. A lot of estimates are putting it around 400 million. Now that number may seem low, but if it's not 1.4 and it's higher than 400 million, maybe we're sitting at 600 or 700 million. That's not enough to float all these industries. They like to make it seem like their population's a lot bigger, because then people vie to get into their market. But I don't think their market is as big as they're making it out to be.
Probably. But will we ever know? Probably. Who knows? But then another one, Romania?
Why don't we go to Rumble for the last couple stories, and then we'll be done for today.
RUMBLE.
Oh, sorry, RUMBLE. Nobody's watching on here. It's not going to matter. We got Walker.
Well, no, we have Rafa and Walker. We should make a good show for them.
Well, we are.
So yes, we're heading over to RUMBLE, apparently.
But what I'm saying is, if I say something out of line, it's not. What are the YouTube censors going to do? Ban the show?
Well, because it's a small channel, they might be more keen to ban it. But yes, so Rafa, Walker, and anybody else watching, if you want to follow us over to RUMBLE, we'll finish off there. That sounded bad. We'll do the rest of the show there and then let you all rest. But for YouTube, this is it. So thank you.
Thank
Don't
you.
forget to like it and to subscribe.
Yeah, if
'cause
you are watching it,
it helps us on YouTube especially.
If you're watching it tomorrow, please like and subscribe. They will not push our content right now on
Yes.
our English channel outside of Mexico, so it is really hard to grow this channel.
Yes.
Okay,
We'll see you there.
and let me know when we're there.
Okay. Hold on.